sister's parents' worst nightmare. I see this, I watch this on TV. I never imagined this happening to me. Oh my God.
John Lee Cowell is charged with killing Nia Wilson. Now Night Beat's Dahlin says there may have been warnings about his dangerous behavior before the young woman died.
Attorneys representing Nia Wilson's family say suspect John Cowell had threatened 2 other female passengers before killing the 18-year-old.
MacArthur BART station in Oakland, California. Security cameras captured 3 sisters stepping off a train at 9:30 p.m. They were laughing, talking, heading home after a family party. Just an ordinary Sunday night. But someone was watching them. A man stood in the shadows, silent. He had followed them for 30 minutes on that train. Now, as they walked toward their connecting platform, he moved closer. His hand reached into his pants. He pulled out a knife. In 2 minutes, 18-year-old Nia Wilson would be dead on that platform. Her sister Latifah would be fighting for her life with a stab wound to her neck, and the attacker would calmly walk away, changing his clothes like nothing happened. The police chief called it one of the most brutal attacks he'd seen in 30 years on the force. But here's what nobody could answer. Why? The sisters had never seen this man before. They never spoke to him, never looked at him. So why did he choose them? Was it random violence, or was there something darker behind this attack? And how did a man with 10 years of violent crimes end up free to kill? Welcome to Crazy Dark Files. If you want to help spread awareness about public safety failures and the warning signs that could save innocent lives, then please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Your action now could help push for the changes needed to protect others who might be in danger. Nia was born on November 12, 1999. Everyone who knew her called her PG. It stood for Pretty Girl. And it wasn't just about how she looked. It was about her energy, her spirit, the way she made people feel when they were around her. She was a cheerleader. She was a rapper. Nia and her cousins had a music group called Girls in the Hood. They made an album called Fake Shit. After Nia died, they released it in her memory. She was also amazing with makeup. People would come to her just to watch her work. But Nia had bigger dreams. She wanted to open her own dance studio one day. She was also thinking about joining the army. At just 18 years old, she was already planning her future. Nia came from a big family. She was the youngest of 8 kids, 6 sisters and 2 brothers. Her parents were Ansar El Mohammed and Alicia Grayson. Her sisters included Malika Harris, Latifah, Nishea, and Tashea. They were close, the kind of family that spent time together, that looked out for each other. Nia was set to graduate with honors from Dewey Academy, an Oakland continuation school. She worked hard for that. But what really showed you who Nia was? It was how she treated people. In 2016, Nia went to a vigil for her boyfriend and his best friend. They had drowned in a reservoir. 3,000 people showed up to remember them. Then someone fired a gun into the crowd. A 16-year-old girl named Regina Jeffries got shot in the neck. She was standing right next to Nia. Nia didn't run. She stayed with that girl until help arrived. The man who would take Nia's life was named John Lee Cowell. He was 27 years old, and he had been hurting people for almost a decade. When Cowell was just 18, he beat up a man and his daughter. In 2009, he did it again. He attacked a 51-year-old man named Shane Glick and punched Glick's daughter. Why? Because they confronted him about a burglary. He was charged with felony assault. In 2013, he was convicted of battery in Walnut Creek. By 2015, things were getting worse. Police found him high on methamphetamine. He got 90 days in jail. That same year, his own family had to file a restraining order against him. He tried to break into their home while he was on drugs. His family was scared of him. Then came 2016. Cowell walked into a Lucky's store at El Cerrito Plaza and started stealing. When a security guard confronted him, Cowell pulled out a knife and a fake gun. He was arrested at a BART station. He was convicted of second-degree robbery and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Also in 2016, he threatened to kill an employee at Kaiser Richmond Medical Center. They had to get a restraining order against him. His record was full of other charges too: assault with a deadly weapon, drug possession, vandalism, petty theft. Cowell had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. His family later said he had been in and out of jail and never got proper treatment. They said he'd been living on the streets. Here's the part that should terrify you. Cowell was locked up in a maximum security facility for mentally ill convicts, but in May 2018 they let him out, just 3 months before he killed Nia Wilson. 3 months. He was homeless, he was untreated, and he was riding BART trains. 4 days before the attack, transit officers caught him skipping his fare. They let him go. 1 week before the attack, a black woman punched him in the face during some kind of confrontation. And on July 22, 2018, John Lee Cowell boarded the same train as 3 young black women returning from a family gathering. He watched them, he followed them, and what happened next was captured on camera. That Sunday evening, Nia, Latifah, and Tasha went to a family gathering in Concord. It wasn't a celebration. They were there for a relative who had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. The family wanted to spend time together while they still could. Around 9 p.m., the 3 sisters left to go home. They boarded a San Francisco-bound train at Concord BART station. They were tired, ready to get home. Just 3 sisters on a train. But they weren't alone. John Lee Cowell got on that same train at Concord station. Security cameras captured the moment he saw them. They were on the escalator heading to the platform, and from that moment, he locked onto them. For 30 minutes, Cowell rode that train. He watched the sisters. He didn't talk to them. He didn't approach them. He just watched and waited. The prosecutor would later say that Cowell was planning his attack. He could have done it on the train, but he didn't. He waited for the perfect moment. At 9:30 p.m., the train pulled into MacArthur Station in Oakland. The sisters got up to transfer to another line. They stepped onto the platform. Cowell followed them. What happened next took less than 2 minutes. Cowell walked up behind them. He didn't say a word. He pulled out a knife and attacked. He slashed Nia's throat. The blade cut through her carotid artery and jugular vein. Then he stabbed Latifah in the neck. Tasha was right there. She saw everything, but somehow she wasn't hurt. Cowell stepped back. He just stood there, watching. Nia collapsed. Latifah grabbed her sister, trying to help her, blood pouring from her own neck wound. Nia Wilson died in her sister's arms. 2 minutes, that's all it took. She bled out on that platform while her attacker watched. After Nia stopped breathing, Cowell turned and walked away. He went through an emergency exit door into a parking lot. Security cameras caught what he did next. He opened his backpack, pulled out different clothes, and changed right there. He threw away his bloody sweatshirt. He tossed the knife into a construction area. He left his backpack behind. Inside that backpack was his ID, his name, his date of birth, everything police would need to identify him. BART police officers were already at MacArthur Station when the attack happened. Witnesses ran to them, screaming for help. The officers rushed to the platform and found the 2 sisters. They tried to save Nia, but it was too late. BART Police Chief Carlos Rojas arrived at the scene. He had been a cop for close to 30 years. He'd seen a lot of violence, but this was different. He told reporters, "It was probably one of the most vicious attacks that I've seen in close to 30 years of police experience." He called it an unprovoked, unwarranted, vicious attack. The sisters had never spoken to Cowell. They'd never even looked at him. There was no argument, no dispute, nothing. Nia Wilson died on that platform. Latifah survived, but she would carry those scars forever. And Tasha had to watch her baby sister die. But the question that would haunt investigators, her family, and the entire Bay Area was simple. Why? Why did he choose them? Cases like this make us question everything about public safety. How does someone with a history like Cowell's end up free to attack innocent people? What do you think? Was this a random act of violence, or was there something darker at play? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're finding value in this deep investigation, hit that like button. It helps more people learn about cases that deserve attention. Now let's talk about what happened next. Because the manhunt was about to begin, the morning after the murder, BART police released security images of the suspect. John Lee Cowell's face was all over the news. By Monday evening, July 23rd, someone recognized him. A BART rider saw Cowell at Pleasant Hill BART station and called the police. At 6:27 p.m., officers arrested him. No struggle, no chase. They just walked up and took him into custody. Cowell was booked on 3 charges: first-degree murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and violation of parole. He was taken to Santa Rita Jail in Dublin. No bail. He wasn't getting out. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Security cameras had captured everything. Him following the sisters, the attack, his escape. His backpack was found with his ID inside. Witnesses saw him wipe the knife clean and run. The knife itself was recovered from the construction area where he threw it. This should have been a straightforward case, but it wasn't. On August 22nd, prosecutors added another charge: lying in wait. This is a special circumstance in California law. It means the attack was planned. The victim had no idea it was coming. If convicted, Cowell would face life in prison without parole. The death penalty was also possible. Cowell's defense attorneys asked for more time to review the evidence. They especially wanted to see the video of the attack. The court kept delaying his plea entry. First to September, then to October. Then came the competency question. Could Cowell even stand trial? Was he mentally fit to understand what was happening in court? 3 different doctors evaluated him. One doctor said he was incompetent. Another said he was competent. The third doctor couldn't decide. In July 2019, the court finally ruled that Cowell was competent to stand trial. But his attorneys weren't done. They argued he was too mentally ill to participate in his own defense. In December 2019, a judge made the final call. Cowell was fit to stand trial. The judge noted that Cowell had been refusing to cooperate with the doctors who evaluated him. The trial could finally move forward. But the biggest question remained unanswered, and it would divide the community, spark protests, and make national headlines. Why did John Lee Cowell attack those 3 sisters? The Wilson family had never seen him before. They never spoke to him, never had any contact with him. So why them? Many people in the community believed they knew the answer. This was a hate crime. Nia's sister, Malika Harris, said it directly. "It is a hate crime. That's how I feel, okay?" Their father, Ansarul Muhammad, agreed. He told reporters, "Why would you choose 2 young black girls? That's all I want to say." And there was evidence that seemed to support this theory. John Lee Cowell was white. The 3 sisters were black. 1 week before the attack, Cowell admitted he was punched in the face by a black woman. After the stabbing, prosecutors said he tried to pick a fight with another black woman. During the trial, the prosecutor questioned him about both incidents. Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf released a statement. She said, "The fact that his victims were both young African-American women stirs deep pain and fear in all of us who acknowledge the reality that our country still suffers from a tragic and deeply racist history." But she also said there was no evidence the attack was racially motivated. Cowell's family saw it differently. They released a public statement saying Cowell had been struggling with mental illness. He'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. They said he had been in and out of jail and has not had the proper treatment. The statement ended with, "This is in no way an excuse for this vicious attack." There was another complicating factor. The San Francisco Chronicle reported that Cowell had matching tattoos with a black friend. Some people pointed to this as proof the attack wasn't about race. But the New Yorker responded, "A tattoo doesn't prove the absence of hate." Officially, authorities said they had no evidence of racial motivation. Cowell was never charged with a hate crime. But that didn't stop the public outcry. Hashtags, Nia Wilson, say her name.
Say her name. Nia Wilson. Say her name. Nia Wilson. Say her name. Nia Wilson. Say her name. Nia Wilson.
And justice for Nia Wilson went viral on Twitter. Celebrities spoke out. Anne Hathaway, Bruno Mars, Viola Davis, Janelle Monáe, and Jada Pinkett Smith all posted about the case. Singer Kehlani called Cowell a white supremacist. Basketball star Stephen Curry raised over $21,000 for young Bay Area athletes in Nia's memory. Over 1,000 people marched through Oakland chanting, "No justice, no peace." The media coverage added fuel to the fire. Fox affiliate KTVU posted a photo of Nia holding a cell phone case that looked like a gun. The National Association of Black Journalists and other groups condemned the station. KTVU anchor Frank Somerville later apologized. The San Francisco Chronicle ran a headline that read, "BART killing, divergent paths met tragically on Oakland platform." Critics said the headline made it sound like both Nia and her killer were equally responsible. Whether or not race played a role, one thing was certain: John Lee Cowell was going to trial. And what happened in that courtroom would be just as disturbing as the crime itself. In February 2020, the trial finally began. Deputy District Attorney Butch Ford presented the prosecution's case, and the evidence was damning. The jury watched security video from that night. It showed Cowell spotting the three sisters on the escalator at Concord Station. It showed him boarding the same train. For 30 minutes, he watched them. He followed them. He waited. Ford told the jury that Cowell could have attacked them on the train, but he didn't. He waited until they got off at MacArthur Station to transfer. That was the moment he chose, when they were vulnerable, when he could escape quickly. The video showed Cowell pulling the knife from his pants. It captured the attack. It showed him walking away calmly afterward, going through the emergency exit. More footage showed him in the parking lot, changing his clothes, discarding the evidence, trying to blend in. Ford told the jury in his closing argument, he took that little girl's life. But Cowell's public defender, Christina Moore, had a different story. She argued that Cowell was not guilty by reason of insanity. She said the attack was a rash act stemming from his mental illness. Moore told the jury, a person can be organized yet schizophrenic. Just because Cowell planned his escape didn't mean he was sane when he did it. She said, this case is and always has been what was in John's mind. Then Cowell took the stand. His testimony was bizarre. He told the jury he thought the Wilson sisters were aliens. He said they were part of a gang that had kidnapped his grandmother. During the trial, Cowell was thrown out of the courtroom twice for disruptive behavior. He couldn't control himself in front of the judge and jury. The jury watched all the videos again, the stalking, the attack, the aftermath. They heard from witnesses, they heard from experts, they heard Cowell's own words. In closing arguments, the prosecution hammered home one point. This attack was planned. Cowell followed those sisters for 30 minutes. He waited for the right moment. He brought a knife. He knew what he was doing. Then the jury left to deliberate. They came back in 2 hours. On March 10, 2020, the verdict was read. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of attempted murder. Guilty of lying in wait, a special circumstance that meant Cowell had planned the attack and ambushed his victims. The jury rejected the insanity defense. Judge Alan Heimer made it official. John Lee Cowell was legally sane at the time of the attack. He knew what he was doing. He understood right from wrong, and he chose to kill Nia Wilson anyway. The Alameda County District Attorney released a statement. The horrific killing of Nia Wilson and the assault on her sister will haunt her family, loved ones, and our community forever. Mr. Cowell will now serve the remainder of his life in prison. Cowell showed no emotion when the verdict was read, no remorse, no reaction. But for the Wilson family, this was just the beginning of closure. They had sat through weeks of testimony. They had watched the videos of their daughter and sister being murdered. They had listened to Cowell's ridiculous claims about aliens and kidnapped grandmothers. Now, all that remained was sentencing. And the Wilson family would finally get to speak directly to the man who destroyed their lives. On July 17, 2020, John Lee Cowell was sentenced. Because of COVID-19, the hearing was held over video conference. The sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The district attorney's office had chosen not to seek the death penalty. Cowell showed no remorse, no emotion. The only time he spoke was to ask the judge about filing an appeal. But the Wilson family had plenty to say. Ashia Wilson, Nia's sister who witnessed the attack, spoke through tears. "You took our baby. I'll never be okay, never." Latifah Wilson, who survived being stabbed in the neck, addressed Cowell directly. "You are inhuman," she said. "I can't forgive you for that." Then she added, "I have to forgive you for the peace of my family." Tashia told reporters she wished Cowell had received the death penalty. Their father, Ansar El Mohammed, said simply, "All I want is justice for my daughters." But the family wasn't done seeking justice. They filed a civil lawsuit against BART. The lawsuit pointed out several failures. 4 days before the murder, transit officers caught Cowell skipping his fare. They let him go. Cowell had been arrested at a BART station before. He was known to the system. 2 weeks before the attack, Cowell threatened other passengers. No report was taken. The family's lawyers argued that the violence was foreseeable and preventable. They sought compensation and demanded improved safety measures on BART trains and platforms. Cowell tried to appeal his conviction. On January 5, 2023, a 3-justice panel from California's 1st District Court of Appeal rejected his appeal unanimously. The conviction stood. But Nia's case wasn't happening in isolation. BART was dealing with a violence crisis. In just 5 days, there were 3 homicides on BART. Nia Wilson's murder was one of them. And here's the most heartbreaking detail. Hours after Nia's funeral, 2 more people were stabbed at MacArthur Station, the exact same place where Nia died. The Wilson family had to hear that news while they were still mourning their daughter. BART Police Chief Carlos Rojas admitted the system had problems. He said BART was working on a $28 million security upgrade plan. $15 million would go to upgrading digital cameras over 4 years. Another $1.3 million per year would be spent on monitoring those cameras. They planned to spend $4.9 million on a physical security information system. But for the Wilson family, those upgrades came too late. The day after Nia's murder, on July 23, 2018, over 1,000 protesters marched through Oakland. They gathered at MacArthur Station, the place where Nia died. They chanted, "No justice, no peace." The community was angry. They were heartbroken, and they wanted answers. On August 2nd, an event called Youth Speak, Adults Listen was held at Frank Ogawa Plaza in Oakland. Young people stood up and talked about feeling unsafe in public spaces. The conversation spread beyond Oakland. People around the world started talking about racial violence and public safety. The next day, August 3rd, Nia's memorial service was held at Acts Full Gospel Church in Oakland. It was a celebration of her life. 18 white doves were released, 1 for each year Nia lived. A horse-drawn carriage carried her to her final resting place. Congresswoman Maxine Waters sent a letter that was read at the service. Congresswoman Barbara Lee spoke in person. The funeral was live-streamed so people everywhere could pay their respects. At MacArthur Station, people created a public memorial. Flowers, balloons, and candles covered the platform. Some people performed songs and poetry in Nia's honor. Activist Najari Smith organized a bike ride in Nia's memory. 30 people participated, riding through Oakland to honor her life. Nia's music group Girls in the Hood released their album Fake Shit after her death. It was the album they had been working on together. Now it would be Nia's legacy. The Wilson family made sure Nia's story was heard. They spoke at rallies. They gave interviews. They refused to let their daughter become just another name, just another hashtag. Nia's life mattered. Her dreams of opening a dance studio mattered. Her plans to graduate with honors mattered. Her music, her cheerleading, her kindness, all of it mattered. And her death would force a reckoning with public safety that continues to this day. So, what can we learn from Nia Wilson's death? First, the system failed at every level. Cowell was released from a maximum security facility for mentally ill convicts just 3 months before the attack. He had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. But there was no follow-up care, no monitoring. He was just let go. Second, BART security failed. 4 days before the murder, officers caught Cowell skipping his fare. They let him go. 2 weeks before, he threatened other passengers. No report was filed. Cowell had been arrested at a BART station before. Yet he still had access to the system. Third, the parole system failed. Cowell was released in May 2018 after serving 2 years. He violated parole by being at BART where he'd been arrested before, but no one was watching him. The bigger issue is this: what do we do about homeless people with untreated mental illness who have access to weapons and public spaces? We need better coordination between housing services and care providers. We also can't ignore the racial element. Whether or not this was legally a hate crime, the community felt targeted. Black women deserve to feel safe in public spaces. And finally, community vigilance matters. An anonymous BART rider recognized Cowell and called police. That tip led to his arrest. Every single one of these failures was preventable. And that's what makes Nia Wilson's death not just a tragedy, but an injustice. Let's remember who Nia Wilson really was. She was PG, pretty girl, not just because of how she looked, but because of who she was inside. She was the girl who stayed with a shooting victim at a vigil when everyone else ran away. She was an aspiring dancer who wanted to open her own studio. She was a rapper with Girls in the Hood. She was a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend. Her father said it best. My daughter was everything. She was so beautiful, so inspirational, had dreams, you know. The haunting reality is this: Nia was just transferring trains. That's it. She was going home after visiting family. This could happen to anyone. We need to demand better from our transit systems, our care providers, and our justice systems. Nia's cousin once remembered her saying, "Justice is never served when black people were killed." In court, justice was served. Cowell will spend the rest of his life in prison. But true justice would have been prevention. True justice would have been Nia living to see her 19th birthday. Nia Wilson's name should be remembered, not just as a victim, but as a catalyst for change. Because the best way to honor her memory is to make sure this never happens again. Rest in peace, Nia Wilson. Thank you for watching this difficult but important case. If you want to see more in-depth true crime investigations, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on this case. And remember, stay safe out there.